You are listening to the Bat Flip Podcast, a baseball podcast from Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Damian and Matt.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Bat Flip Podcast. My name is Damian, here with my co-host, Matt, coming to you on May 25th of 2022. Got an episode. We're going to talk about the Yankees' injury problems, a big starter going down for the Mets, a wild game between the Mets and the Giants from this past week. One of the top prospects in baseball got his call up to the major leagues and debuted this week, extension. And then we're going to, through the quarter way of the season, we're going to buy or sell some of the worst starts that we've had so far of teams that we expected to compete. And then we'll jump to players of the week at the end. But before we get into all of that, how are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good. Just hanging out. Kind of a little disappointed today. We were, it's one of my favorite weeks of the year where the SEC baseball tournament's in Birmingham, and this is why we're recording on Wednesday night because I was supposed to go to the game last night, but we've had some horrible weather issues this week, and we're still, I think they've canceled the rest of the games tonight. So there's been like 5 games played in the entire tournament in 3 days. So that's been a little disappointing not to get to go see some really good Southeastern Conference baseball. But it's been a pretty good week other than that. So ready to talk about some baseball. We got a pretty good full packed show today. So
yeah, we do. So let's just go ahead and we'll jump right in with the Yankees. And we'll start for just this week alone. The injury bug has taken quite a hit on them outside of COVID issues, which they had with Joey Gallo and Josh Donaldson. You got to look at Giancarlo Stanton had a calf strain. Roldis Chapman had Achilles tendonitis. Jonathan Loaizaga had right shoulder discomfort. Those were all within the past couple days that they got put on the IL. And then another high leverage reliever for them, and Chad Green, had a right elbow strain and was actually announced today that he is undergoing Tommy John surgery.
yeah, this is really one of the things that could potentially derail the Yankees season. They've had such a good start to their season, and but a lot of their key contributors have had injury issues in the past. You look at Stanton; that's been a big problem for him since he got to, or really his whole career, but especially since he got to New York. And then you look at even like he's not hurt right now, but Aaron Judge is another guy you just worry about because of his injury history. But obviously he's healthy and playing extremely well right now. But look at some of these guys. I mean, those are 3 relievers that just went on the IL that last year and in years past have been really key to the Yankees bullpen. And obviously, Chad Green, Tommy John surgery, it's a legit, he's going to be out a long time. But the other 2 have really struggled. Loaizaga, probably a shoulder injury. I would assume that's something, for real. And Chapman, I mean, I honestly feel like this is one of those, IL him and see if he can get right type things. He might have some Achilles tendonitis. Obviously, I hope he's okay if he does. But, he's really been struggling. And then you had the COVID issues too, with Donaldson and Joey Gallo being on the IL. I know Joey Gallo got activated today. I'm not sure about Donaldson, but those guys have been having issues with COVID apparently. So, but yeah, I mean the Yankees they'll overcome this. Most of these injuries outside of Chad Green don't seem to be super long term unless Stanton caught Mike Trout's calf strain from last year, which hope not. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully these guys come back pretty soon because the Yankees have been really fun to watch this year.
Yeah, and just looking towards their start of the season, they're 30-13. They're leading that division by 4.5 games. This is the type of injuries that can allow the Rays, who are 4.5 back, or even the Blue Jays, who we'll talk more about here later, to kind of peak their way back in there if these, turn into longer term injuries. But hopefully they're back, especially Stanton and Chapman are 2 fun people to watch when they're on their game. But hopefully they come back pretty soon. But going from one New York team to the other New York team, we'll hit on the Mets for the next couple stories here. And I feel like you gave them the jinx a little bit last week, Matt, when you were mentioning on the podcast that, they're starting pitching issues with DeGrom and Tyler McGill already, and saying that Max Scherzer's had his health issues. Actually, the day we were recording that, he got an oblique strain, had to come out of his start early. It's a pretty big one. They said that he's about looking at 6 to 8 weeks until he gets reevaluated.
Yeah, this is really tough at the Mets. Like I said last week, first off, it's not a jinx. It's just Nostradamus, um, but anyways, you look at Max Scherzer, and he's a guy. He's had his issues the last couple years with injury, and I don't think people have paid too much attention to it. For about 5 or 6 years, he was a total workhorse, 200 plus innings every year from 2013 through 2018. Then and obviously 2020 doesn't count because of the COVID year, but 2019 and 2021, his innings were way down compared to what they have typically been. 2019 only 27 starts. Typically, he's in the 33, 34 range. He's missed some starts last year. Missed 2 or 3 starts. I think he had hamstring issues last year. But remember also the playoffs. He had the dead arm in the playoffs. So this is a guy who he's 37 years old, and when you're relying on a 37-year-old as your ace, you can't be fully sure he's always going to be there. Just because at 37, I mean, a guy could just be in tip-top phenomenal condition, but still, he's got a lot of mileage on that arm. And obviously this isn't an arm injury, but even so, it's really unfortunate for the Mets because Max Scherzer was pitching extremely well. A 296 FIP, a 254 ERA in his first 49 innings this year. His velocity was actually a little bit down, but wasn't walking anybody. His strikeouts are still at 11 strikeouts per nine, which is elite, and he was still pitching extremely well. But 6 to 8 weeks, and we'll see what happens for him. But for the time being, the Mets are now without Jacob deGrom or Max Scherzer, and they're going to be that way for a pretty long, lengthy amount of time.
Yeah, and then just looking towards the rotation that they got to have now, that makes Chris Bassett pretty much become the ace of that staff now. You have Carlos Carrasco, you have Taijuan Walker, but then you're going to be relying on guys like David Peterson, and I'm going to butcher this name, but Thomas Zapuki. Is that how you say it?
I have no idea how to say that name.
Yeah, I don't know either, but you're going to be counting on guys like them to, be major parts of that rotation. And you're looking at least until July, until you're getting DeGrom or Scherzer back at the earliest. And who knows with what's going on with Tyler McGill. So it is a big hit to the Mets. The Mets staff, they've been pretty decent offensively, but that can only overcome so much. And that kind of leads to the next story with the Mets as well. Is they had a wild game with the Giants actually last night on Tuesday. Had a little back and forth early. The Giants took a 6-run lead. Then the Mets came back in the 7th, scored 2. Then in the 7th, they scored 7 in the 8th to, I believe, tie it. The Giants scored 3 in the bottom of the 8th. The Mets scored 1 in the 9th, and then the Giants scored 2 in the bottom of the 9th to end up walking it off and winning the game 13-12. And just a couple highlights from that game. Jock Peterson of the Giants had 3 homers with 8 RBIs. And then for the Mets, Lindor had a couple hits with 6 RBIs.
Yeah, that was just a crazy game. It kind of goes to show the Mets' issues with that pitching. I mean, it's not ideal for them right now. I think Chris Bassett might have started that game too. But yeah, I mean, you look at that game, and the Giants have really needed that. Jock Peterson started off the first few weeks of the season on fire, and then he had a little bit of an injury and had to go on I don't remember if he went on the IL or if he just missed 4 or 5 games, but he never really got back into a rhythm. And then the last couple days, he's just caught fire again. So that's been nice. Obviously, Jock Peterson is notoriously streaky of a player. He had another home run again today, but I think I saw something where they've been tracking. I think it might have been Fangraphs. I saw an article where they had been tracking games since 1974 for like the win loss, in game percentages of the probability, and that this was like the wildest swings in a game since they've been tracking since 1974. I think that might have been Ben Clemens writing that article earlier, but I read, but on Fangraphs, but that was just crazy. Like, this game was wild, and it's definitely a good news for the Giants to be able to pull out some games like that. Then today the Giants put up a huge amount of runs again. So the thing that worries you for the Mets is that I think their offense has been a little bit lucky on balls in play and stuff so far this year. They're one of the lower in the league in exit velocities. so far, and they really need that pitching to keep going, because that was supposed to be their carrying thing, was that they had a pretty good offense, but their pitching was going to carry them. And right now it's tough for a pitching staff to carry you when your top two starters on the IL, and then another guy who was having a little bit of a breakout, it was on the IL, and then they also have a couple of relievers that have been on the IL. I think Trevor May's still on the IL. He's one of their highest paid relievers too, who's one of their more successful guys in the bullpen. So they've got a lot of injury issues, and I mean, just a typical Mets season. I mean, every year we make fun of it, but it's true. I mean, they always have issues with injuries in their pitching staff. It's really unbelievable. So I'm sure it's a little bit of bad luck there, but there's something they're doing in New York that is bad for pitchers. So
Well, and not even to mention that they lost their starting catcher, James McCann. They backdated it to May 11th, but he had to have hamate surgery. And
oh
he had
yeah, I
that
didn't know about
surgery
that.
on the 17th.
Yeah,
So he's out for, 6 weeks as well. So it's another big thing, a guy who they paid to come in and be their starting catcher. Um, on top of the pitching staff, a guy who you would thought be able to handle your staff, pretty decently. And now you're losing him on top of losing your top starters. So you're going to a backup catcher with, you know, not your best pitching staff in general. So that's going to hurt even more.
yeah. The good news for the Mets, though, it is the fact that the rest of the division's scuffling, and that they've built up a big enough lead that they could probably weather that lead. They might lose some of that lead, because I mean, there's too much talent on like the Phillies and Braves to for them to both stay cold the whole year. But
Sure.
that it when these guys start coming back, they'll probably still have a lead of some sort. So it's definitely something to look at too. But yeah, I mean, the injuries piling up, and some there's gonna be some entertaining games with New York, just like that Giants. I don't know about just like that Giants game, but there's gonna be some entertaining games with the Mets for a while because of the lack of pitching. So it's gonna be a lot of high scoring games.
There definitely will be, and we'll a little bit later on we'll talk more about the NL East here in just a little bit for sure.
Yep.
So, but the next thing we wanted to jump to is that I guess probably the best prospect that was left in the minor leagues. We talked a bunch about how a lot of the guys got their call to start the season. The one big name that didn't, and that's Adley Rutschman. Basically, he was dealing with some sort of an injury to begin the year. That's probably why he didn't start in the majors, but got his call up this week. Has struggled a little bit so far, but you've seen the flashes of the talent of what he can bring.
Yeah, Adley Rutschman is a guy who is going to be a superstar at the big league level, in my opinion. I think he's the most talented out of all the prospects, that those top 4 or 5 that everyone's talking about, this being one of those like generational type rookie classes in the American League. I felt like he was the best one out of the bunch. I thought that it was between him and Julio Rodriguez. Um, maybe Bobby Witt being in there that group as well, but I thought that he was the best one. And Adley Rutschman has looked, in the minor leagues, looked great. He was really unlucky at AAA in his 12 games he played there. It's a 206 BABIP, which is really low for what he'll end up running. But the fact that you're getting a guy with elite plate discipline, he's got power. He's a switch hitter. He could do it pretty much anything you ask him to, and he's an elite catcher. I mean, you're looking at, I don't want to go as far as to say Buster Posey 2.0, but a switch hitter. But he's, I feel like he's got a lot of similarities in his game to Buster Posey. So I mean, I think this guy's going to be incredible. You know, uh, Knowing the struggles for some of these rookies so far, I think Adley Rutschman could end up being the rookie of the year in the American League, even though he started later. We were kind of expecting him to come up at some point, around now, when the season started. But we figured a couple of those guys that started the season as a you know opening day would end up being the front runners for rookie of the year, because they'll have more volume. But a lot of those guys have really scuffled, and Adley Rutschman has an opportunity to come in and do it himself. So we'll see what ends up happening. He's had a pretty good, or he hadn't had a great start, but he's looked all right so far. Just the 86 WRC plus, but 300 on base percentage, 222 average. I mean, he's not striking out a ton. He's hit the ball pretty hard a couple times. I don't. It's just been like 4 or 5 games. So, but I think Adley Rutschman's going to end up being really, really good. So,
Yeah, he has all the talent in the world, and we've seen him when he gets to a place struggle to start with, just trying to learn the environment, learn it all, and then once he gets settled in, he takes off from there, and especially that jump to the major leagues is bigger than any step he's taken before. So it will be fun to watch him, and like you said, he does have a legit chance to win the Rookie of the Year just because of the way that the other rookies so far have struggled. Even though Julio Rodriguez has kind of looked a lot better
Yeah, he
recently,
started
but I think we kind of saw that one coming because of the enormous strikeout rate and bad calls he was getting. But Adley does have a thing, and it's good for Orioles fans. They have something to really cheer for now. Um, when that team doesn't have much talent on it to begin with. But another little thing we wanted to just hit on is Blake Trinan of the Dodgers signed an extension. He had an option for 2023 already. They basically guaranteed that. And then there's some sort of a 2024 option. I don't remember if it was a mutual or club/player, but there's some sort of a 2024 option on that deal.
Yeah, Blake Trinan is pretty well documented his career. He's been a really good reliever. He had that 1 year with the A's where he was like the best closer in baseball, hands down. Then he struggled for a year or two. The Dodgers got him, kind of figured it back out. He's not quite as elite as he was with the A's, but he's pretty darn good. And he's been on the IL pretty good bit this year. I don't know what this extension might mean for his IL stay. Hopefully, it doesn't mean that his IL stay is going to be a lot longer than was kind of expected. But he'll be back next year if not this year. And the Dodgers lock up a guy who's a really solid reliever, and probably depending on how they feel about Gratterall and Kimbrel being a free agent at the end of this year, probably be their closer in my opinion. He's already their best one, but Gratterall's got the talent to be able to do that, even though he hadn't fully put it together yet. And then Kimbrel is obviously an established closer right now. So and Kimbrel does not like pitching not the ninth inning. So um, but we'll see what ends up happening. I'm interested to see if hopefully he comes back this year, gets healthy.
Yeah, I'm not as enthusiastic as I think I should have been for when they signed this extension, just because it was such a weird time. You don't really see extensions for a guy who has an option year left this early in the season unless it's kind of bad news forthcoming. We haven't heard anything yet, like for sure, but there had been some rumblings that even if he was going to return this year, it was going to be like late August, early September. He still hasn't even picked up a baseball yet, and he would have to go through a whole throwing program and that. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not back this season. As far as the closer thing, they don't really want to use him as a closer. They like him as being able to use the high leverage reliever in whatever spot they want. So they would patch together that actual closer spot. But I just don't think it's really a good sign for him coming back this season for the way the extension was and the news that was kind of coming out the day before the extension was signed, because I think it was on Saturday that Roberts pretty much said that he's got a long road ahead and that probably early August or late August, early September, if anything, this year. So not great there, but at least he signed, and we know he'll be back for 2023 with some sort of a 2024 option at least. But for the next segment, we wanted to, quarter way through the season, it's going to be early reactions here, but we wanted to say, are we buying or selling the struggles that these teams have made so far? Most of them are teams we expected to be very competitive this year, and fight for a playoff berth. So we'll go ahead and start in the NL East. We have the Toronto Blue Jays. They've started 23-20. They have a -7 run differential. The big things we've seen from them is that Vlad Guerrero has really struggled so far to start this season, and that they have been the worst team in Major League Baseball with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, you look at the Blue Jays, and I think they're going to be fine. I don't know whether that's buy or sell, but I guess we're selling the bad start, buying the team. But
Yeah.
I think they're going to be fine. I think some of their issues are overblown a little bit. You look at Vlad Jr., and I think he's going to be fine. He's not slugging quite as much as he was last year. I am a little worried about a couple of their guys. Bo Bichette, I'm definitely a little worried about. He hasn't looked good, and his approach at the plate has never been very good, and he has to hit, you know, he has to hit the ball really hard for it to work. So I am a little worried about Bo Bichette, but this is still a young team. They're a little bit streaky. They've had some really bad luck on balls and play. Matt Chapman has actually played very, very well. He's hit well, but he's just had nothing to show for it. I mean, you're looking at a guy whose baseball savant page is basically all in reds except for strikeout rate, which 26% for him is, honestly an improvement over his last couple years. But he's that's not going to stay like that. They have had some struggles from some guys like Lourdes Gurriel and Teoscar Hernandez, who typically aren't going to struggle that much. But Teoscar Hernandez has had a really rough start. But pitching wise, I mean, Kevin Gossman's been insane. Alec Manoah has been, to me, he's been a key for them because he's been kind of taking that step that they were hoping to get from him. I am worried about Jose Barrios. He hasn't looked very good. He's not getting the swings and misses he typically has. But I mean, I really think the Blue Jays are going to be okay. Some of those guys that in their offense that were expected to be really good are going to turn it around, and then their pitching's not as bad as it's been so far. But it's also not crazy good. So we'll see what happens with them. They'll probably need to add a couple pieces in that bullpen at the deadline, in my opinion. Jordan Romano's been really good, but Adam Simber's been really good, but they could probably, reason to add a couple arms. I think they'll be okay though.
Yeah, I'm selling the bad start from the Blue Jays as well. Basically for everything you've mentioned, and I think we've seen enough of a track record through Barrios at least to see that he'll bounce back, more than what he's shown so far. And I've watched his last couple starts, and I think one of them was against Seattle, and he went like 7 shutout innings. And then the one against St. Louis, he was looking really good. I think it was until the 6th inning. And that's when he kind of gave up, I think, 3 runs there. But Manoah's taken that jump, which is nice to see. Ryu, he's battled some injuries, which is something he's done his whole career, but he's looked pretty decent when he's been out there. Gossman's been unworldly, but I expect a little bit of regression there. But the offense, I think that's the way you're really going to see them, take that step forward. Vlad's not going to be as bad as what he has been so far. He'll slug more.
Well, when we call Vlad bad, he's got a 130 WRC plus. I mean, he hadn't been bad. He's been extremely good. He just hadn't been like the best hitter in baseball.
Yeah, he wasn't what he was last year, which I don't think we expect him to be that guy. But I think we still expect him to be better than what he has been so far, just based off what we've seen. But Matt Chapman will be a guy who turns it around. You'll see some of these other guys turn it around as well. And I mentioned last week sort of the offensive taking another step forward. We've seen that a lot this week. And that kind of helps transition into one of the other teams that we've seen really unload offensively this past week, and that's been the Boston Red Sox, who are 20-22, got a positive 14 run differential. They're starting to heat up now. In the month of May, they have a 929 OPS, 20 homers, and we've seen Trevor Story bounce back, and the whole offense really just get going.
Yeah, I can't remember a player that had completely changed the narrative on him in like a week as much as Trevor Story has, honestly. But for real, I think this Red Sox team, I think they're gonna end up with a record, a winning percentage real similar to what they got right now. The reason's because I think they're always going to be a streaky team because they're the way they play on offense. I think their offense is really good. I love Xander Bogaerts. I always have. I love Rafael Devers. He's really, really good. Trevor Story, I think, is probably a true talent about what he's been on the season now, which is a good hitter, kind of lower on base, but he's going to slug. He plays a really good shortstop, or I guess he's playing second for the Red Sox, but he should be playing shortstop. But I don't really expect the Red Sox. The biggest problem I have with the Red Sox is I don't expect their pitching to hold up. I mean, Nick Pivetta is leading their pitchers in WAR right now. You've got Nate Eovaldi isn't going to be as bad as he's been. He had that one outing that we talked about a couple weeks ago where he gave up a ton of home runs. That his numbers are really skewed by that one outing. But I expect a couple of these guys like I think Garrett Whitlock's going to continue to be pretty good. But I don't expect Nick Pivetta to keep this up the whole season, even though he's he's still got a 4.25 ERA. I don't think he's very good. Their bullpen is a disaster. I think that and defensively they're just okay. Now they do have some struggling hitters that could turn it around. I definitely don't expect Alex Verdugo to be this bad all year, but at the end of the day, I think this team's going to end up being similar to what they are now. And the fact of the matter too is the fact that they're in the AL East. The Yankees are just playing incredible, and the Blue Jays. We both agree we think they're going to turn it around, and even though they're really not all that bad, anyways. And the Rays are still playing well. So I mean, you got to really jump over three teams, and I just don't see that happening. So I'm definitely I guess selling the Red Sox as a team that's going to turn it around.
Yeah, I would basically sell them as well. And like you mentioned, it's just strictly because of the pitching staff. If they're going to want to be competitive, they're going to need to make some sort of a move to get some other pitchers in there in the bullpen and in the rotation. They could be getting the boost with Chris Sale, who is supposed to be ready mid to late June. That would be big for them, depending on which Chris Sale you get. But if they can get a guy like that and then trade for one of these other starting pitchers that are going to be out there on the market this year, and then maybe a bullpen arm or two, I'd feel a little bit better about it. But they're a team I wasn't really high on coming into the year anyways. I think I even predicted them to finish fourth in the division. And they've pretty much backed it all up. We knew they would hit, and we knew they wouldn't pitch as well. And that's sort of what we've seen. And without moves, I don't think you can really buy the team as being a competitor in the AL East in the long run if they don't get some other pitching in there.
Yeah, and I will say one thing about them before we get off the Red Sox here, and it's the fact that Rich Hill has actually been pretty good, and the fact that Michael Wacha has not been a disaster, and that those two guys were keys to that. They had to have good seasons for the Red Sox pitching staff to hold up, and their starting staff hasn't been great, but to a certain level has held up. It's really just their bullpen. It's a lot easier to find bullpen help at the deadline. I mean,
well,
but
it comes to the point where if you can find a couple
yeah,
starters, you can throw Houck and Whitlock back in the bullpen, where you've
yeah,
been using them as starters and they excelled in the bullpen last year. So that immediately makes your bullpen better. Basically, you get two upgrades there if you can get one starting pitcher for your rotation. Like that's something I
yeah.
think that they could
And
easily do.
remember, hopefully Chris Sale comes back at some point too.
Well, that's what I
Remember
was just
he's been out
saying.
for a while, and yeah,
Yeah,
so,
he's supposed to be back at mid to late June, so
yeah,
hopefully he comes back and is the Chris Sale we all know. But
yep.
speaking of Chris Sale, we'll go to his old team, the Chicago White Sox, who are 21-21, negative 35 run differential, only batting 236 as a team, and the worst walk rate in MLB so far.
Yeah, the White Sox have some issues, but this is a team that, man, the White Sox are a tough one because I want to buy them as a team because I think they've dealt with a lot of injury issues. Uh, they've had injuries to most of their star players. I mean, you've got like Luis Robert missed 7 games this year. You've had Andrew Vaughn's missed 14 games. But you look at their pitching is their pitching's missed a lot of time. They still haven't gotten anything from Lance Lynn yet. You've had Lucas Giolito's been on the shelf for a while. Um, those are two. I mean, that's their two top pitchers. Those two and Dylan Cease that they needed to do well. So that worries you about that's encouraging that they are gonna get healthy at some point, or at least hopefully they're gonna get healthy at some point. But the problem is the White Sox defensively have been unbelievably bad. Like, it's hard to believe how bad they've been defensively. I mean, Tim Anderson's made more errors than I think I've ever seen a player make in his first 36 games, and it's just unbelievable, and a lot of self-inflicted stuff. Um, and but the thing is, too, you look at this team, they're not facing off with any kind of like juggernaut teams in their division. I mean, the Twins have had a good start, but the Twins are getting banged up too. I think the White Sox are going to eventually be okay. I don't think they're as much of a World Series contender as I might have thought. So, if you want to buy them, I don't think I can buy them as a World Series contender anymore to me. But I think they'll still probably make the playoffs and I think the chances are they win this division, even though I'd say it's more of like a 51-49 chance that they win the division than the 90% I would have said at the start of the year. But definitely some issues here, but we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, I'm really worried about the White Sox. I just I know there was a lot of the allure around them, and it just seems that even the players that we expected to still be there, like Jose Abreu, has really struggled so far to start the year. And then if you even look at their expected win to loss ratio, it's saying that they're supposed to be 17-25, like, and
Yeah.
they're 21-21. Like, they've even been playing worse than what their record says right now. And I know the run differential kind of says that as well, but that's kind of aided by Boston scoring like 16 runs on them yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, so that's a big thing. They've had a couple of those big blow up games to kind of that way, but just in general, the team just doesn't seem to be there. Maybe that's the defensive part. Maybe getting Moncada back will help the offense a little bit more. Maybe the defense. Like, I don't know what they can really do besides getting Lance Lynn back and the pitching to be more consistent. Like, even getting Lance Lynn back, it's not going to help you defensively because he's a guy who is, he strikes some guys out, but he puts more balls in play. Like, where are you going to go from there? Like, that's just going to hurt your defense because they're having more opportunities. So I don't know. I think I want to. I think I'm almost on the sell train for the White Sox. I really like what the Twins have done so far, and I just don't. I don't know where the White Sox. It seems like they're in a bad place right now, and that I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel for them.
Yeah. I mean, and like I say, I probably would be on the sell because I'm right on the borderline on the White Sox. I think I would be on the sell if they were in any other division, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting with them.
it will be. It'll be one to watch for sure. But let's jump over to the AL West and a team that overachieved last year, and you probably saw some of the regression coming. And that is the Seattle Mariners, who are 18-27. They have a negative 29 run differential, but there is a little thing in there is that they've been 10-8 at home with a +6 run differential, and 8-18 on the road with a negative 34 run differential. They've already had 2 of the East Coast trips, so that can take a wear on you. And as far as at their home, they have the best home OPS in the American League at 767.
Yeah, I this is a team I'm going to sell the Mariners team. I think that they are a team that I kind of saw this coming before the season. They're a team that was going to rely solely on players who, or not solely, but they were going to rely heavily on players who are very unproven at the major league level. And a lot of people were getting caught up in the hype of, oh my God, they got a great farm system. They had a good record last year. But, last year they really overachieved how talented their team was by winning a ton of one-run games and having a really good record, even with a bad run differential. And there's still stuff like I don't think they're as bad as their record right now, but there's still a lot to like about them. I mean, Ty France has continued what he did last year. He's been really good. Um, Eugenio Suarez has actually been solid, which I think I said that was coming too. But Julio Rodriguez, even after his early struggles, has been really good. He's got a 120 WRC plus on the season now, and he's up over a one win above replacement, and he'll just continue to get better. Um, but I mean, this is a team that just doesn't have a lot of depth, and their pitching to me was always a problem. And I know they signed Robbie Ray, but coming in, I thought Robbie Ray was going to regress off of what he did last year. His peripherals didn't quite match what he did last year, ERA wise, and it's definitely been the case. He's actually been the opposite this year. His peripherals are similar to what they were last year. He's just been a little unlucky this year. A 4.77 ERA. I think he's a little bit better than that, but the walks are back up a little bit with him. He's not throwing as hard. There's definitely something mechanical there. Now, I will say that Logan Gilbert has been a revelation for this team, and he's been extremely good. And that George Kirby has looked pretty solid since he's come up. He hadn't been his ERA doesn't show it quite yet, but he hasn't been walking guys. And he's a young pitcher. He throws pretty hard. He's looked pretty good. He's got a 3.11 xFIP in his first 4 starts, which I think he's going to continue to be a really solid piece at the big league level. But I mean, it's just a team you're going to rely on Chris Flexen, Marco Gonzalez, Matt Brash, who, I know you really like Matt Brash, but I think he's got a lot more seasoning that needs to be done just because he's one of those super high upside, but guys who seems to not really throw a lot of strikes right now. And, he's got some stuff to work on there. But, we'll see what ends up happening with the Mariners. I do think there's still some hope for this team. I mean, they've got some pretty good pieces, but I just don't. I mean, I don't know. I just haven't really felt like this Mariners team was quite ready yet. I think they're probably a year away. And by the way, one other thing, it does not help them that Mitch Haniger's only played 9 games, which has been a problem for him in the past.
Yeah, I'm probably more high on the Mariners than most people were. I see a lot of upside that can turn around with the Mariners. That they aren't as bad as what they have. You look at a guy like Jesse Winker, who I don't think he's a 219 hitter anymore. Like, he's probably not the 305 guy he was last year, but he's only getting on base to 310, 331% mark, where his career low before that was a 357. Like, he'll get on base more. He'll start hitting the ball more, and they've got a guy like Kyle Lewis just came back off the IL yesterday, who's going to be a big piece for them as well. If you can get Mitch Haniger back, like, the offense is going to take a step forward. The pitching staff, Robbie Ray will get in line a little bit better than what he has been so far. Logan Gilbert's taken that step forward. George Kirby's been really good so far. I think the starting pitching it's good enough to help you win enough of the games that you need to. I think the real thing they need to upgrade is the bullpen. You've been relying on a guy like Andres Munoz, who's still pretty young but hasn't been good. Like Sergio Romo in there. I think he's actually been pretty decent, but
He's been great. 1.13 ERA.
well, look at that. I didn't know he's been that good, but overall, like, I think you just need some more help in that bullpen. The offense will take a step forward, and I think that's kind of what's been hurting them is they've been playing a lot of close games with the offense, not being able to score as much, and then the bullpen kind of blowing it late. So I think they'll take a step forward. I don't think they're going to be, bottom of the division like they are right now, but they've already put themselves 10.5 games behind the top 2 teams in this division. So that's a major hole to climb out of. They could probably fight back into a wild card fight, but definitely not, competing for the division like I thought they were going to be early on. And they have a lot of home games to come. Like, they've already played, 28 games on the road, 29 games on the road, and they only 18 home games. So they have a ton of home games coming that will help, boost that record even a little bit more. So
Yeah. Just one other little note of the Mariners. You look at playoff odds for teams on Fangraphs. They do a pretty good job typically. Of course, last year the World Series champs had like 4% playoff odds at one point, but they, you look at the Red Sox, we talked about 37%, the Blue Jays still at 85%, White Sox 61%, the Mariners are at 5% playoff odds. I mean, a lot of the projections stuff don't really like the Mariners, but there is a lot to like, in my opinion, about them. In fact, I honestly think that they, as a talent level, are a little bit better than I thought they were going to be this year. I think it's a mix of they're a little bit better than their record. They're a little bit, they're better than their record. I think their talent level is better than their record. Their record's about what I thought it would be, maybe a little bit worse, but they're just. I still don't see them being a real contender right now. I think they're a year away, but anyways.
Yeah, I need some of those young guys to take a step forward, but
yeah, for sure.
See. So let's jump over to. We mentioned earlier that we would talk more about the NL East, and that's what we're going to do right here. Starting with Atlanta. They are looking at a 20-23 record so far, negative 14 run differential. They do have 52 homers on the year, which I believe at this point last year they had 54, so they're still slugging the ball really well, which I think it's second in the NL. And the big thing that you kind of got to look at is that they've played to an 8-8 record since Ronald Acuna Jr. returned, and some of their key pieces that they really expected to be, big pieces offensively have really struggled to start the year.
Yeah, so a couple things with the Braves. The Braves have had some pretty rotten BABIP luck this year. A 285 BABIP for a team that is one of the higher teams in the big leagues in exit velocity is that's pretty dismal. And the strikeouts have been a problem for the Braves. 26% strikeout rate as a team for it, which is way too high for them to be have a good offense right now. But you look at them and you do have some encouraging signs recently. Like you mentioned, Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back. He's been pretty solid, 137 WRC plus. Um, he's not hitting quite for the power yet, and he's actually missed some games even since he came back off the IL from his ACL injury. He's had some issues with staying fully healthy. He's had some I think he had a little bit of a groin issue last week. He got scratched from the lineup tonight with a quad issue. They expect him to be back over the weekend, but he's going to have a little bit of maintenance type stuff like that, kind of coming back to full, playing full games, full time. But it's just a team that they've lost a lot of games in ways that you're like, man, this is rough. But they've had some good performances. William Contreras has really been a revelation for this team. He's been really good. He had another home run tonight, and a guy who is hitting extremely well. He's got a 190 WRC plus on the season, and as a guy who he's a catcher, so that's pretty it's pretty amazing if he can keep that up and stay behind the plate. But they've had some issues with the pitching too. Max Fried's been great as he usually is. Kyle Wright's been incredible, which is shocking. Spencer Strider's been incredible out of the bullpen. He might end up in the rotation at some point, but some of the guys that they relied on last year, look at the bullpen arms they relied on in the playoffs last year. Tyler Matzik is on the injured list now, and he was horrible before getting put on the injured list. And Will Smith hasn't been very good either. He's been giving up that home run ball again, and he's not striking guys out at the same level as he usually does. So that's a couple of issues they've had. They really don't have a 5-starter. Charlie Morton's looked like his age is showing a little bit, but we'll see what ends up happening. I still think this bullpen is good. They've had some tough luck at times, but I think they're good. Starting rotation with Max Fried, Kyle Wright are still really good. Ian Anderson's been decent. Charlie Morton will be okay. I still think this team's pretty good, but I wouldn't call them the favorite anymore. I would say that they're probably more of I think they're more of a wild card team than they were looking like at the start of the year. But they're not going to keep playing this poorly all year. I think they're going to turn it around at some point. So we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, this team. One other guy to mention, they haven't had Eddie Rosario for he played 15 games on the IL he had a vision issue and he had to have surgery on his eyes. So he's going to be back in a couple months. But that was another big offseason acquisition that's no longer on the active roster. So we'll see what ends up happening with them. But I think they are going to be okay.
Yeah, I absolutely think that the Braves are going to be better than what they were or have been so far. The addition of Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back, that's just going to lift everybody up. And you said the BABIP luck, that will turn around. Like over a season, it will figure itself out. Remember last year early on, we were talking about how bad Freddie Freeman's BABIP luck was to start the season. And then by the end of it, he had a typical Freddie Freeman season. So I definitely expect it to turn around. The rotation, I expect them to be just fine. And the Braves will turn around. And I still think they're probably going to end up winning the division. Just with the Mets struggles so far, the pitching staff, the injury concerns, those are huge question marks. And I think I would lean towards the Braves having, what they had so far, and the question marks they have are, a lot less risky than what the Mets have. So I would still expect the Braves to take a step forward. But talking about the Phillies as well in the same division, 20-23, a positive 14 run differential. The big thing for them is, which we've talked about all the time, they're so bad defensively. They're a 4th worst in the major leagues in turning balls in play into outs. I think it's been 6 of their 7 or 6 of their 9, or maybe 5 of the 9 guys in the starting lineup have a WRC plus over 100. I know Odubel Herrera is pretty close at like a 98. The pitching staff has been, really good. Like Zach Wheeler, Kyle Gibson, Zach Eflin, Aaron Nola. They've been really good so far, even with the bad defense. And even the high leverage relievers have been pretty decent. Sir Anthony Dominguez has been really good. Corey Knable's been really good. Jose Alvarado, the ERA doesn't look good, but the ERA at 7.30, but the FIP of 2.56 and an xFIP of 3.24. Like, that shows that, he has had some bad luck so far as well. Really, the whole issue has been the, low leverage guys in that bullpen haven't been, what they're expected to be. You got like Damon Jones has a 964. Christopher Sanchez has a 584. Jerry's Familia has a 460 ERA. James Norwood has 853. Like, it's really just been the low leverage guys in that bullpen and the defense that is really hampering the Phillies. And, um, obviously we've talked so much about their defense. I don't know what you're going to be able to do to change that at this point. You're just going to have to outslug that. But I think it's been more refreshing that at least the back end of that bullpen, which is something that they did make a couple steps towards this offseason, has actually looked really good. And that top four in that starting rotation has looked pretty decent so far as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at I agree with some of that. You look at definitely Corey Knebel's helped them a lot. The big thing with the Phillies is that, I mean, you look at their ERA is 3.95 compared to a 3.50 FIP. And typically, I'd say, they've been a little unlucky or whatever, but that's a lot of that's defense. I mean, that defense is bad. Last night, it cost them a game against the Braves that they should have won. With a dropped fly ball in center field. I mean, Nick now they're playing Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber in the outfield every day because Bryce Harper is only able to DH. So that's been a problem for them. Bryce Harper has played really well. They've had some good outcomes from. I mean, hitting wise. I mean, Alec Boehm looked a little bit better. But I mean, this is just a team that to me it's just nothing really. It's a team of about 7 DHs and about 3 good starting pitchers, and then a bunch of other guys. I mean, I think Corey Knebel's a pretty good guy to have as your closer. But that bullpen, I still Jose Alvarado is a guy that he just walks so many guys. His he's gonna have blow up games because he walks so many guys. He just has no control. I mean, you look at a guy like Brad Hand has a 153 ERA, a 159 ERA, but a 519 xFIP. He's not as good as he's pitched so far, and I just don't believe in this Phillies team at all when it comes to putting together. I think they're a collection of pretty good players that's just poorly put together. To me, but we'll see what ends up happening with them. I mean, they've got some encouraging things. I mean, I don't think that like Nick Castellanos is going to continue to have a 105 WRC plus. Reese Hoskins, he's probably about what he is right now. JT Realmuto is going to hit better than an 83 WRC plus. Definitely believe that. Like Bryce Harper is going to continue to play extremely well. But I mean, they still don't have a center fielder. Their shortstop situation is, I mean, Johan Camargo's actually played pretty well for them, but believe me when I say I don't think Johan Camargo is going to be your answer at shortstop. I don't know. I really don't believe in this team very much at all. So we'll see what ends up happening. You never know. They've got enough firepower offensively that they could they could make waves, but it's just they're not the worst team on this list of buy or sell, but I definitely put them somewhere in the lower tier of these teams we're talking about today.
Yeah, to me, I think they're going to be a close to 500 record team. Like, they'll take a step forward offensively. I do think that the pitching staff, at least the top 4, at least can keep up what they've been doing. The back end can keep doing what they've been doing. The big thing is just where can they improve that defense? And I just don't see how they're going to be able to do that, because that's really what they're going to need to be a top flight team. You can't have a bad defense and compete with teams like the Mets, the Dodgers, the Braves, who are so, the Padres, when they're at full staff, like, they are so good offensively. You can't afford to be giving those teams extra outs. And that's the Phillies' whole problem right now, is just giving teams extra outs, especially good teams. That's where you're going to get beat. And there's just no clear room for them to make that improvement without some, multiple massive changes in the middle of the season.
Yeah, and I was going to say, there's really nowhere that you can really improve, too, because, I mean, what are you going to do, bench Nick Castellanos because he's a bad outfielder? I mean, you're paying the guy $20 million a year, you're going to sit him on the bench. I mean that's kind of the types of things, like, there's not a lot, it's the way you built the team, there's not a lot you can do at this point about it, well, like you say. I think I'm kind of agreeing, but...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't, there's nothing you can do without making massive changes. Like, you can go get a better defensive center fielder. That's going to help a little bit. But like, who are you going to get to at third base? Like, you believe highly in Alec Boehm, but like, and he's been good offensively. So where are you going to find a defensive third baseman that, are you really going to want to replace Alec Boehm so far? Like, Gene Segura has been pretty good so far. Are you going to replace him? Like, where are you going to go at shortstop? Because you believe Bryson Stott's your guy, even though he's really struggled so far this year, and you have DD coming back. Like, there's just no clear answer for them to take that step defensively without some wholesale changes that I don't see coming at all. Like, they've built the team this way for a reason, and there's just, you can't pivot off that. So it's going to be, you need your offense to take a step forward, and you just need to hope for the best defensively. And I mean, it's pretty decent so far, but I think this is what they're going to be. Like, anyways, so the last team that we have in the buy or sell stage of the show is the San Francisco Giants. They are 24-19 with a plus 21 run differential. They have less power than they were showing last year, but they're still at 4.9 runs per game, still getting on base. They're fifth in the majors at that point. They're third offensively in productive outs, moving people over. The big thing that they've taken a big step back from last year is their defense. They have a high ERA this year and a jump in hard hit contact rate. And really that goes to the defensive rate in the outfield. They are -7 DRS in the outfield and -3 on the infield this year. Just a really weird thing. The Giants are usually such a sound defensive team. And there's definitely room for improvement there. Like, you can see that it's not much of a change that has to be made for them to become a better defensive team, especially what we've seen from them in the past. That will come around. I think Brandon Belt coming back will help that. Brandon Crawford obviously will. Evan Longoria being back is probably better than Wilmer Flores at third base, which is what you've been seeing a lot of anyways. But yeah, and their pitching staff will be good. But I don't know if, how are we feeling on the Giants? Like, I'm so torn on if I think that they're going to keep this up or if they're just going to take the step back, because of just, I didn't believe them in them last year. They're keeping up the same pace this year, but even less, like, I'm less confident in them even this year.
Yeah. So I think the Giants, I think that they're a team that they're probably the third best team in their division. I mean, the Dodgers, you kind of flip the Padres and the Giants records from last year, and I think that's what you'll end up with. Because, I mean, the Giants, for one thing, there are some good signs with the Giants. Mike Kasrimsky's back to the player he was in the short 2020 when he looked like he was going to end up being a superstar, and he's been that guy again this year so far. I mean, he's been extremely good. His plate discipline's been elite this year. A 308 average, 406 on base, 477 slugging, a 1.2 WAR so far. He had another home run today. That didn't even count that. They lost a lot from last year's team too. You got to remember, you lost Buster Posey, and he was extremely good last year, and you replaced him with a rookie, and Joey Bart, who has been okay. 0.4 wins above replacement, hadn't been a disaster, but I mean, striking out 46% rate. That's really, really bad. But a few things, too. Your team has a 292 BABIP, which is pretty low. It'll probably come up some. Um, there's just a lot of guys on this team that I just don't know. They've also had a lot of injuries too. There's a lot of guys on this team I just don't know if I believe in really to a certain level. But I mean, their pitching staff. I mean, Carlos Rodon has looked like incredible. Logan Webb is really good. You'd like to see him strike a few more guys out, but that's not really the top thing of his game. Alex Cobb, I don't know where his velocity came from, but he's also been one of the most unlucky pitchers in baseball. 6.25 ERA to go with a 2.75 FIP and a 2.36 xFIP. He'll be a lot better ERA wise than he's been so far, but some of that small sample size on all these too, by the way. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think this team's going to be okay. I don't think they're going to be. I don't think they're as good as they were last year, but they find ways to win games too. That's just one other thing about the Giants. They always do. They're very well managed and they win their platoon splits. It's a team that I typically would see overperforming their their talent level and their kind of expected win-loss record. by the end of the season. I just think they do a great job mixing and matching and winning a lot of close games. But we'll see what ends up happening with them. They're definitely a team that, you know, it's gonna be close down at the end of the season with them, whether they make the playoffs or not.
Yeah, it's going to be close. And just through the same amount of games last year, or on through 41 games last year, not the same amount, but they were 25-16 last year through the 41 games. They're on the similar pace this year, like where they were the best team in major leagues last year, and they're just slightly behind that record wise right now. Like, I believe the defense will come around, and that will probably make me more of a believer in what they can do to sustain the success in the division. But like you mentioned, the Dodgers are going to be the Dodgers, and the Padres have shown, especially with Bob Melvin, which we knew they were going to be a big jump this year. They've shown that team that was early on last year before their late season collapse. And it's going to be hard to keep up with those two teams with the lack of talent that the Giants have, in-house, where they just do the mix and match thing and hope it works. But it will be something interesting to watch, to see if they can bounce back defensively at least. But let's jump over to Players of the Week and wrap this episode up. So who do you have for your hitter this week?
My hitter this week is actually Trevor Story. He has had a very, very nice week. In 28 plate appearances, 6 games this week. He's hit 6 home runs, which is a lot. He's hitting .333 with a .393 on base percentage and a 1.083 slugging. That's good for a .299 WRC plus, but that also comes along with a .182 batting average on balls in play, which is extremely low. So he's been incredibly unlucky this week, and he's still put up that slash line. Trevor Story has really just made up for a lot of poor. Well, I won't say poor play, but he's made up for a lot of people who were not happy about how he started the season, and he's been extremely good this last couple weeks in general, but really this last 7 days has been incredible. And we'll see what he ends up going forward. We'll see if he's able to keep up. I'm sure it'll be somewhere in between, but we'll see if he's able to keep up a really solid pace. He's if he continues to hit well, look out for Trevor Story, because he's a guy that he's going to play good defense. He's a good base runner. And he's a little streaky at the plate, but if he hits for if he keeps hitting for power, he's really good at the plate, at times. So definitely a guy who is really starting to turn his season around, and has been my player of the week. So
yeah, and Trevor Story's a guy who I believed was always going to turn it around, even though the critics from he's leaving Coors and he's had all his success was at Coors. If you've listened to people talk about trying to hit in Coors, then leave on the road, it is very difficult. So I always figured he was going to be a guy once he, got settled into a place and finally learned, like the ball's not changing, the atmosphere is not changing, I should say, going from one way to the other and how you have to hit to be successful in one place and the other. He was going to turn it up. I think the big thing to me that really stood out this week is with everything he did, he still only had a 182 batting average on balls in play this week. Like, that is still really low. Yeah. So like he has room to improve, big time off of that still. So Trevor Story is definitely a guy I expected to turn around, and it's not surprising that he had a week like this once he's starting to figure it out. For my hitter this week, I went with the homer pick. I usually try to avoid it, but Mookie Betts was just so good this week I couldn't do it. Offensively, he was the best team per Fangraphs, or the best player per Fangraphs WAR this week. A 458 average, a 552 on base, a 1.125 slugging percentage for a 347 WRC plus, a full win above replacement, 4 homers, 9 runs, 10 RBIs, and basically he makes this Dodgers team go. And when he's on, that just makes that whole lineup, so much better. And I believe it was on the stats they were showing on the game, I believe it was Friday or maybe Saturday, that in games where Mookie doesn't get a hit, the Dodgers are like 20 games under 500 since he's joined the team. And when he is in the lineup and hits, they are like a 25 above or 30 above 500 record since he's got it. It's a dramatic shift whenever he gets a hit and sets the tone for that lineup. And he was doing that this week. So Mookie Betts is my hitter this week. So who do you have for your pitcher this week?
So my pitcher this week I picked was Zach Wheeler. I actually watched one of his starts this week, so I went ahead and went with him, even though he could get it a lot. He had a rough start to the season. His first couple weeks this year were pretty mediocre, but he's turned it around. His last two starts, 13 innings pitched over, or 13 2/3 innings pitched over his last two starts over the past week. A 12.5 strikeouts per nine. He did not walk a single hitter. He did not give up a home run. That leads to a .34 xFIP. I mean, a .34 fielding independent pitching, but his ERA a 1.32, really solid. 2 wins this week. I think he pitched 7 innings against the Braves the other night and had over 10 strikeouts. In the start I watched, he looks back to the guy that was there last year with Philly, and that's a big deal for them, because this is a guy who they needed him to do what he did last year, because this team doesn't have a lot of room for error with their pitching, especially when you have a starter that's not going deep into games, as we talked about earlier with their bullpen. So definitely a great start. Great couple starts for him, and I'm sure he'll keep it going. But he'll probably get this award a few times this week, or this year.
Yeah. So that game you're talking about with Atlanta, 6 2/3, 8 hits. His 2 runs there, but 10 strikeouts. We mentioned how bad the Phillies defense is. You need those strikeouts.
Yep.
And then his other start this week was against the Padres. 7 innings of shutout baseball there, 4 hits, 9 strikeouts. So to do that against two teams who have a lot of firepower offensively is pretty impressive, which we saw that last year from him. I think we were just kind of waiting to see him take that step so far this year. And it's starting to look like he's back to that form that was, put him as a Cy Young finalist last year. But for my pitcher this week, I ended up going with Sonny Gray, a big offseason addition for the Minnesota Twins. Had 2 starts this week, 13 innings pitched, a 1.38 ERA, 1.05 FIP. And in his 2 starts this week, one being against Oakland, he went 6 innings of giving up 2 runs on 6 hits, 5 strikeouts. But really his start that most people were talking about was against the Tigers. 7 innings, 4 hits, 1 walk, but 10 strikeouts. That's the type of performance you want to see from Sonny Gray. And after losing a guy like Chris Paddock, you really needed Sonny Gray to come back off his injuries and, prove to be that guy that you expected him to be, that top of the rotation guy. And he's starting to prove that. His last couple starts have been really good. And even since he's come back from that injury, he's had 4 starts, and in 2 of them he's gave shutouts, and the other 2 he's had 2 earned runs in each of them. So really proven to be the guy that the Twins really need on top of that rotation right now.
For sure.
But anything else you want to wrap up on the show before we close it out?
I think that's pretty much it. I think next week we'll probably have our division break, our third division breakdown. It'll be the first week of June, so we'll talk a little bit about the teams that we talked about this week, but we'll talk about all the other teams as well, and kind of where things sit. We'll talk a lot about the teams that are really succeeding right now next week, as we talked about the teams who are struggling, in tonight's episode. So look out for that next week, and that's pretty much it. So.
Yep, definitely. We'll have the division breakdown next week, fill you in on how everyone's doing throughout the season so far, and any other news that comes our way this week. But thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the Batflip Podcast. We'll catch you guys next week.